On the internet, you may hear many people showing predictions and making others April Fools. They don't have any real information, just ways to abuse and lie to people. The internet is totally filled with wrong predictions. But if you're watching this video, then believe me, you've found the ancient treasure of the internet, because you're about to see real ancient prophecies that came true in our time. And if you want to grab the whole treasure, make sure to watch this video till the end. So let's begin our journey. Number 15. The rebirth of Israel as a nation. Long before the modern world could imagine the upheavals of the 20th century, prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel envisioned a future where a people, scattered across continents and subjected to exile for generations, would one day reclaim their ancestral homeland. These texts spoke not only of displacement and suffering, but of an enduring promise that the Jewish people would return, rebuild, and re-establish a nation in the land of Israel. For centuries, this vision seemed impossible. Through wars, persecution, and widespread diaspora, hope appeared fragile. Yet in 1948, when the State of Israel was declared, the ancient prophecies leapt from parchment into reality, echoing across history with remarkable precision. Cities rose, communities flourished, and a people long dispersed found a tangible home once more, fulfilling predictions written thousands of years earlier. The rebirth of Israel stands as a striking testament to the enduring power of prophecy, where words of faith intersected with the course of modern events in a way that astonishes scholars, historians, and believers alike. Number 14. The fates of ancient cities, Tyre and Babylon. Tyre, the jewel of the ancient Mediterranean, once rose with walls of stone and timber so strong they seemed unshakable, yet Ezekiel foretold its downfall with shocking clarity. The city would be leveled, its materials thrown into the sea, leaving nothing but a bare, shining crag. Centuries later, Alexander the Great executed this prophecy with brutal exactness, dragging stones from the mainland to build a causeway to the island fortress. Across the deserts of Mesopotamia, Babylon's fate was spelled out by Isaiah and Jeremiah, who envisioned a place of unmatched splendor reduced to lifeless sands, desolate forever. And abandoned modern visitors walking through its ruins can almost hear the echoes of those ancient warnings, as if the wind itself carries the voices of prophets. These cities, once symbols of wealth, power, and human ambition, became living proof that words written millennia earlier could anticipate destruction with uncanny precision, transforming prophecy into a tangible, undeniable chapter of history. Number 13. The destruction of the Second Temple. The city of Jerusalem trembled under the shadow of its own glory, unaware that its greatest treasure, the Second Temple, was marked for obliteration. Jesus had foreseen a devastation so absolute that not a single stone would remain upon another, a prophecy that seemed impossible to many at the time. Yet in 70 CE, the Roman legions descended, laying siege with relentless precision, fires devouring sacred halls, and catapults, tearing down walls that had stood for generations. Citizens fled, temples burned, and the air filled with smoke and despair, leaving only rubble where devotion and majesty once stood. Archaeologists and historians today still walk among the remnants, tracing the footprints of those catastrophic days, seeing firsthand how prophecy and historical reality collided in an unforgettable moment. The destruction of the Second Temple stands not only as a chapter of political conquest, but as a haunting testament to foresight, a reminder that words spoken centuries before can echo through time with devastating clarity. Number 12. Increase in travel and knowledge. Imagine a world where movement and information expand faster than anyone could have imagined in ancient times, a vision that Daniel seems to have foreseen. In the cryptic lines of his prophecy, he spoke of a time of the end when many would run to and fro, and knowledge would multiply beyond measure. Centuries later, humans took to the skies in airplanes, raced along asphalt highways in cars, and even launched vessels into the void of space, fulfilling that image of ceaseless motion. Simultaneously, the explosion of knowledge, from libraries and printing presses to the internet and quantum computing, transformed how we see and interact with the world. The words that once might have sounded like poetic abstraction now resonate with uncanny accuracy, capturing a modern reality that even the most visionary minds would struggle to predict. Daniel's prophecy is less a vague metaphor than a mirror, reflecting humanity's restless movement and boundless thirst for understanding. Number 11. Global anti-Semitism and Jerusalem as a heavy stone. A tiny city perched on hills has long carried a weight far greater than its size might suggest. Zechariah's vision of Jerusalem as a very heavy stone for all peoples captures a reality that stretches into modern geopolitics. Nations debate, fight over, and obsessively monitor this small land, as though its presence alone tips the balance of global tension. From wars and invasions to international diplomacy and headlines that dominate news cycles, Jerusalem remains a focal point of controversy, drawing in powers far larger than itself. Despite its modest population, it continues to stir passions, provoke conflict, and inspire devotion across the world. Observers of history can trace these dynamics back through centuries, yet the clarity of Zechariah's words is striking. A city small in size but enormous in consequence. The prophecy resonates not as a distant metaphor, but as a living truth, where ancient foresight and modern reality collide over stone and soil that refuse to remain unnoticed. Number 10. Messianic Prophecies. 30 pieces of silver clinked in the hand of a betrayer, and a crowd watched as nails were driven through flesh that had already been spoken of centuries before. Prophets sketched the outline of a life with astonishing precision. A birth in Bethlehem, a virgin mother, hands and feet pierced, bones unbroken despite a brutal death. None of it is random. Each detail arrived in sequence, as if history itself were following a script written long before the first footstep in Galilee. Soldiers and priests, skeptics and mourners, all unknowingly enacted scenes that had been foretold in whispers and scrolls. The tension between the ordinary and the divine threaded every moment. An infant swaddled in a manger, a man facing betrayal, a silent agony on the cross. Looking back, the fulfillment reads like a puzzle solved against impossible odds, where ancient words leap off parchment to collide with flesh, blood, and history in ways that defy coincidence. Well, get ready for number 9, the rise of Adolf Hitler. The Danube flowed quietly, unaware that history was about to twist around its banks. Centuries earlier, a cryptic quatrain mentioned a figure called Hister, a shadowed presence rising in a land of empires, a harbinger of turmoil and devastation. Few could have imagined how literally it would unfold. In the 1930s, Adolf Hitler seized Germany, a nation teetering between despair and ambition, unleashing policies and wars that scarred the world and fulfilled that obscure prediction. From rallies echoing across city squares to the machinery of conquest rolling across Europe, the ominous promise of great cost to the empire became undeniable. Scholars debate whether the prophecy predicted names or events, coincidence or divine foresight, but the alignment is striking. A leader emerging near the Danube, bringing unprecedented chaos, rivers flow on, empires rise and fall, and yet in that quiet quatrain, the shadow of modern catastrophe had already been sketched, waiting patiently across centuries for history to step into the lines. Number 8. The Great Fire of London. Flames devoured streets and timber alike, leaping from building to building as London citizens fled into the smoky night. Centuries before, a cryptic verse spoke of a fire in the great new city, a phrase that seemed mysterious until September 1666 turned it into terrifying reality. Merchants' shops, churches, and homes vanished almost overnight, leaving only charred ruins and echoes of frantic cries. The Great Fire reshaped the city, forcing a reconstruction that would redefine its streets, its architecture, and its sense of security. Some see the prophecy as astonishingly precise, others as a curious coincidence. Yet the phrase lingers in historical memory like embers in the dark. What began as a small blaze in a bakery near Pudding Lane became a catastrophe that fulfilled a warning whispered long before, proving that words written on parchment sometimes precede real-world destruction. The city rose from ashes, but the verse remains a haunting testament to foresight catching fire. Number 7. The 9/11 attacks. Flames ripped across the sky, twisting metal and glass into molten chaos as the Twin Towers buckled under an impossible weight. People poured into the streets, some clutching loved ones, others frozen by disbelief, while ash fell like an unholy snow. Centuries earlier, a cryptic quatrain spoke of a king of terror from the sky and a sky burning at 45 degrees, a riddle that once seemed abstract but now screamed with brutal clarity. Smoke mingled with screams, planes vanished into steel, and the air itself seemed to shudder under the calamity. In offices, on streets, and across the world, witnesses felt the collision of fate and foresight in every shattering window and collapsing beam. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the firestorm ceased, leaving only a jagged skyline and the echo of sirens. A city forever scarred, not by imagination, history, or prophecy alone, but by the raw, unanswerable violence of a single morning. And now it's time for number 6, Napoleon Bonaparte's rise. Ambition never asked permission. It slipped quietly through Corsican streets, a boy with eyes sharp enough to measure the world. Napoleon Bonaparte carried it like a secret weapon, growing taller in the shadows of his island home while Europe slept. Crowds cheered, generals flinched, and maps blurred under the sweep of his campaigns. Yet in the corridors of palaces, whispers spoke of a ruthless cunning that made allies wary and enemies tremble. Cannons boomed like distant drums. But for him, the real battles were often fought in strategy, deception, and timing. Nations bent and reshaped beneath his relentless march, and yet he moved as if the continent were a chessboard, each piece expendable in pursuit of power. When exile finally claimed him, the wind across St. Helena carried not cheers, not curses, but a strange quiet. One man, his brilliance, and the uneasy calm left behind, a reminder that greatness often arrives with an unpredictable shadow. Number 5. Leonardo da Vinci's flying machines. A feather drifted across the workshop floor, unnoticed, while Leonardo bent over parchment, ink staining his fingers as he traced wings that had never moved. He sketched contraptions that imitated birds, measuring angles, calculating forces, imagining a sky filled with human flight. Centuries before the roar of engines would fill the air. Villagers peered at his machines with suspicion, seeing toys or madness. But Leonardo saw potential: lift, thrust, drag, principles that would one day carry people above mountains, rivers, and cities. His ideas lay dormant, buried in notebooks that would outlive him, waiting for wings of steel and fabric to catch the wind. When the Wright brothers finally soared, centuries later, the world proved the imagination had not been idle. And yet, in those first tentative flights, the human bird left the ground clumsily, as if apologizing to Leonardo for waiting so long, reminding the sky that vision often arrives decades before the hands that dream it are ready to touch it. Number 4. Nikola Tesla's prediction of wireless communication. He held a small coil in his hands, eyes glowing with an idea that reached farther than anyone could see. Nikola Tesla spoke of turning the Earth into a huge brain, a living network where thoughts and voices could leap across oceans in an instant. He imagined a device small enough to fit in a vest pocket, yet powerful enough to connect people separated by continents, predicting a world of invisible currents carrying messages faster than light, or so it seemed at the time. Inventors scratched their heads, skeptics laughed, and yet his vision quietly seeded the future. Decades later, people would carry tiny screens in their hands, tapping into a web that Tesla had glimpsed long before its construction. And still, in that imagined hum of currents and signals, one can almost hear Tesla chuckling, as if the world's chatter itself had become a kind of mischievous reply to a genius who had spoken too far ahead of his time. Number 3. Robert Boyle's organ transplants. A scalpel never existed in his hands, yet Robert Boyle imagined healing that stretched beyond the boundaries of the body. In the 1660s, he wrote of cures achieved at a distance, or at least by transplantation, ideas that seemed like alchemy to his contemporaries, whispers of impossible medicine. He envisioned organs moved from one human to another, diseases conquered not just by herbs and bloodletting, but by ingenuity and precise intervention. Centuries later, surgeons would turn these ideas into reality, replacing hearts, kidneys, and livers, transforming once terminal ailments into survivable conditions. Yet Boyle's vision carries a strange tension. The body, once sacred in its boundaries, suddenly became a landscape of exchange, a puzzle of parts that could travel and heal. In quiet hospital corridors, where machines beep and sterile lights hum, his words echo, not as prophecy confirmed, but as the bold curiosity of a mind that refused to see limits, imagining life beyond the flesh, long before it could be done. Number 2. Mark Twain's death. A baby's cry echoed through a small Mississippi home, and above, a streak of light traced its silent path across the heavens. Samuel Clemens, destined to be called Mark Twain, entered the world under the rare glow of Halley's Comet. And with his trademark humor, he joked he would leave it the same way. Decades passed. Books were written, lectures delivered, and laughter and wit traveled farther than most men could hope. As 1910 approached, anticipation was not only for celestial observers, but for the man who had made a playful prediction centuries in the making. When his final breath came, the comet returned, blazing across the sky once more, as though honoring its old acquaintance. There were no proclamations, no fanfare, only the quiet alignment of life and legend, a reminder that sometimes timing bends in ways that feel orchestrated, leaving behind a story that whispers of coincidence, wit, and the curious alignment of man and cosmos. Number 1. The agricultural transformation of Arabia. Sand stretched endlessly, shimmering under a relentless sun, until engineers and machines began whispering life into the desert. Centuries ago, the Prophet Muhammad spoke of an agricultural transformation in Arabia, a vision of abundance where once there had been scarcity. At the time, these words seemed like hope more than prediction, soft promises against a harsh landscape. But modern irrigation, underground aquifers, and carefully planned farmland have turned stretches of arid sand into green fields and orchards, rivers of water flowing where none existed before palm trees sway in formerly barren valleys, and the smell of fertile soil mingles with the desert wind. Yet even in this triumph, the transformation carries a subtle irony. What was once a natural struggle for survival now depends on technology and human intervention, and the desert, though subdued, still reminds its inhabitants who holds ultimate power. Life blooms in improbable places, but the land remembers its own rhythm. Time folds in strange ways, and words written centuries ago sometimes ripple into the present. From deserts that bloom to cities reduced to ash, human ambition, chance, and invention collide with ancient visions. These stories don't just record what was foretold. They pulse with the unexpected, the uncanny, and the astonishingly real. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share what you thought in the comments. It really helps me know what you enjoy. Also, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching and spending time with us.